My mom gave me an ultimatum: pay my brother's rent or lose my family forever. I thought she was bluffing. She wasn't. Stay with me till the end, because what happened next still feels unreal. And if this story hits your heart even a little, don't forget to show some love by subscribing and sharing it with someone who needs to hear it. My name is Clara Ridge, I'm 27, and I've always been the one who had to hold everything together in my family. When my dad passed away 2 years ago, it felt like someone had ripped the floor from under me. But somehow I kept going. I worked 2 jobs, paid my bills, and tried to stay close to my mom, Martha, and my younger brother, Evan. But after Dad died, something changed in her. It was like all her love, all her patience went straight to Evan, and I became the outsider. Evan is 24, old enough to take care of himself, but he's never really worked a proper job. He always has some new idea or business plan, yet nothing ever lasts. And every time he messes up, Mom runs to rescue him. I used to help too, until I realized it was never ending. That night, I was exhausted from a double shift when my phone rang. It was Mom. Her tone was cold, sharp, not the kind of voice that asked for help, but demanded it. "Clara, your brother's behind on rent again," she said. "You need to help him out this month." I sighed, already knowing where this was going. "Mom, I can't. I just paid my bills. I don't even have enough for my own groceries right now." There was a pause, and then her voice hardened. "If you can't help your own brother, then maybe you're not part of this family anymore." I froze. I actually thought she was joking at first. But she wasn't. She meant every word. My own mother was ready to cut me off. Not because I did something wrong, but because I refused to cover for my brother's laziness. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking. I sat there in my small apartment, staring at the walls, trying to understand how my family had turned into this. I thought about all the times I said yes to them, all the times I helped without being asked, and how none of it mattered now. I didn't call her back that night. I didn't text Evan either. I just sat there in silence, realizing something painful. Love shouldn't come with conditions, but in my family it always did. And for the first time, I started to wonder if walking away might be the only way to save myself. The next morning, I drove to my mom's house, hoping maybe she'd calm down overnight. I kept telling myself she was just upset, that she didn't mean what she said. But the moment she opened the door, I knew I was wrong. Her eyes were cold, her lips pressed tight like I was some stranger showing up uninvited. She didn't hug me. She didn't even smile. She just crossed her arms and said, "So, did you come to apologize?" I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Mom, I didn't come to fight. I just want to talk. You can't keep asking me to fix Evan's problems. I'm barely keeping myself together." She gave a bitter laugh. "Barely keeping yourself together? You've got 2 jobs, a car, an apartment. Evan doesn't have half of what you do. You've always had it easy, Clara." That cut deep. Easy. Working day and night, never asking anyone for help. That was easy? I wanted to scream, but instead I just said, "Mom, I love Evan, but he needs to take responsibility. You can't keep bailing him out." Before she could reply, Evan walked in from the kitchen, holding a smoothie like he didn't have a care in the world. "Hey, sis," he said, smirking. "Did you bring the check?" I looked at him in disbelief. "You think this is funny? You're behind on rent again, and you're smiling?" He shrugged. "Relax. I've got a new business plan in the works. I just need a few months to focus. Once it hits, we'll all be rich." Mom looked at him proudly, like he'd just invented something world-changing. "See, he's trying. You could show some support instead of always judging." I turned to Evan. "You mean your business plan that involves gambling online?" "Yeah, I checked your posts. You've been betting money you don't even have." His smile vanished. "You don't know what you're talking about." Mom's expression changed from confusion to anger. "That's enough, Clara. You've always been jealous of your brother. You can't stand to see him succeed." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Jealous? Of a grown man who lived off lies and handouts? I stood there shaking, not from fear, but from pure disbelief. "Mom, I'm not jealous. I'm just done being used. You can twist the story however you want, but I won't pay his rent." She glared at me like I'd just confessed to a crime. Then, in front of Evan and the neighbors who'd gathered near the porch, she said loudly, "If you can't help your own blood, you're not one of us." For a second, everything went quiet. I looked at her, my mother, and realized she meant it. I turned, walked to my car, and drove off, her words echoing in my head like a door slamming shut. Within a week, everyone knew. My phone started buzzing nonstop with messages from relatives, neighbors, even old family friends. At first, I thought someone had died. But no, Mom and Evan had already told their version of the story. In their version, I was the selfish daughter who refused to help her struggling brother. They made it sound like I had turned my back on family just to keep my money to myself. My aunt called me first. Her voice was sharp and disappointed. "Clara, how could you do that to your own brother? He's your blood." I tried to explain that I had been helping for years, that Evan wasn't innocent, but she didn't want to hear it. "You've changed since your father passed," she said coldly before hanging up. The next day, my cousins unfollowed me on social media. One even posted something about fake family who only care about themselves. I didn't need a name to know it was about me. Every direction I turned, I was the villain. Even Dylan, my boyfriend of 3 years, started looking at me differently. One night at dinner, he said softly, "Babe, it's just a few $100s. Why not help him one last time? It's not worth losing your family over." I put my fork down and stared at him. "You don't get it. It's not about money. It's about how they treat me. They only call when they need something." He sighed. "Maybe they just don't know how to ask the right way." That hurt more than I expected. He didn't see it either. I realized that even he believed their side more than mine. After that, our conversations got shorter, colder. Then one evening, I tried calling Mom again, just to check in, maybe fix things. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried again the next morning. This time, the automated voice said, "The number you are trying to reach has blocked you." It felt like someone had punched the air out of me. My own mother had blocked me. I sat there on the edge of my bed, holding my phone, staring at her contact name. I didn't cry. I just sat in silence, letting the reality sink in. Days passed like fog. I went to work, smiled at customers, came home, and stared at my phone, hoping for a message that never came. My apartment felt colder, emptier than ever. I kept replaying every argument, every word I'd said, wondering if I really was the problem. Maybe I should have paid the rent. Maybe I was too proud. Maybe I should have stayed quiet and kept the peace. But deep down, I knew the truth. I wasn't the one who left my family. They left me the moment I stopped being useful. Still, knowing that didn't make the loneliness hurt any less. It was a Wednesday afternoon when everything came crashing down. I was at work, trying to focus on a client call, when I saw her, my mom, standing in the lobby with tears streaming down her face. My heart dropped. For a split second, I thought something terrible had happened. I hung up the call and rushed over. "Mom, what's wrong?" I asked, breathless. She looked around, making sure people were watching, then said loudly, "Your brother's being kicked out. He got the eviction notice today. They're putting him on the street." I froze. Everyone in the office was staring now. My boss was peeking from her glass office, her eyebrows raised. I felt my cheeks burning with embarrassment. "Mom, not here," I whispered, trying to guide her outside, but she kept going, louder this time. "You're his sister, Clara. How can you let this happen? What kind of person are you?" By the time I got her outside, I could feel my chest tightening. "You shouldn't have come here," I said quietly. "You can't just show up like this." She sniffled dramatically. "You're all he has left, Clara. You know your father would have wanted you to help." Those words hit me like knives. Using Dad's memory like that, it wasn't fair. Still, the guilt started eating at me. I promised myself I wouldn't fall for it again, but my heart ached watching her cry. When I went back inside, my boss called me to her office. She closed the door and sighed. "Clara, you're a great worker, but whatever's going on with your family, you need to handle it outside of work. We can't have scenes like that again." I nodded, my throat tight. I wanted to explain, to tell her how hard it was, but what could I say? I just apologized and went back to my desk, my mind spinning. That night, I opened my laptop, looked at my savings account, and stared at the number I'd spent years building. That money was supposed to be for graduate school, my dream. But as I thought about my mom's face, her voice breaking, I couldn't shake the guilt. So I transferred the money. 3 months of Evan's rent. My stomach twisted as the confirmation email popped up. I told myself it was the last time. I even called Mom to tell her it was done. She cried again, but this time they were tears of relief. Later that night, I drove by their house. I wasn't going to go in, just check if things were okay. But as I parked by the sidewalk, the window was open. I heard voices, laughter. Evan's voice. "Told you she'd cave. She always does." Mom's laughter followed. "You just have to push the right buttons." My chest went cold. Every bit of guilt, every ounce of love I'd clung to, it all shattered. In that moment, something inside me broke. I didn't cry this time. I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, feeling something new, something quiet, sharp, and burning. It wasn't pain anymore. It was rage. After that night, sleep became impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I could hear their laughter again. My mother and brother joking about how easy it was to make me break. I kept asking myself why. Why would they treat me like this? Why did my mom love him so blindly, even when he used her? The questions started eating at me, and I needed answers. One Sunday morning, I drove to my mom's house while she was at church. I still had a spare key. I told myself I was just going to grab a few old photos of Dad, something to remind me of better times. But when I stepped into his old study, I saw the filing cabinet still there, covered in dust, untouched since the funeral. Something told me to open it. Inside were folders filled with papers I hadn't seen before. Insurance documents, property titles, and finally Dad's will. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. I remembered when he was alive, he always told me, "I made sure both of you will be taken care of." But the papers in front of me said something very different. Almost everything, Dad's savings, the house, even his small business shares, had been left to Evan. My name appeared only once, beside a single checking account that held a few $1,000s. It didn't make sense. Dad loved me. He was proud of me. He would never have done that. Something wasn't right. I remembered an old family friend, Mr. Halverson, who had handled Dad's legal matters. He'd always liked me and used to bring me candy when I was a kid. I found his number online and called him. His voice sounded surprised when he heard mine. "Clara, it's been a long time," he said warmly. But when I mentioned the will, his tone shifted. "Why are you asking about that now?" "I found a copy," I said quietly. "But something feels off. My dad would never leave me out like that." There was a long silence on the other end. Then he sighed heavily. "Clara, your father's original will was different." My heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "I shouldn't be telling you this," he said. "But after your father passed, your mother asked me to make some adjustments. She said it was for the sake of fairness, that Evan needed more help getting started in life. I didn't question her at the time. I thought it's what your father wanted." I felt the world tilt beneath me. She had changed it. My own mother had stolen my inheritance and twisted the story, so I'd never suspect. When I hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. The woman who had called me selfish, who said I didn't understand family, had betrayed me years ago and lied to my face ever since. I looked around my apartment later that night, and for the first time, I didn't cry. If they wanted me out of the family, fine. But this time, I wasn't leaving quietly. I didn't tell anyone when I moved out of my apartment. I packed my things in silence, one box at a time, until the rooms were empty. No goodbyes, no explanations. I left behind the version of myself that always apologized, always gave in, always hoped things would get better. That Clara was gone. I quit my second job the next day. My boss tried to convince me to stay, but I just said I needed a break. The truth was I didn't need rest, I needed focus. For the first time in years, I wasn't going to be the one fixing other people's mistakes. I was going to fix my own life, even if it meant burning everything that hurt me to the ground. The next step was finding help. I remembered Karen Doyle, my old mentor from my internship days. She was sharp, confident, and worked in real estate law. I hadn't spoken to her in years, but something told me she was the right person. When I called, she recognized my voice immediately. "Clara Ridge? My goodness, it's been ages. What's going on?" I hesitated, then told her everything, from the favoritism to the altered will. She stayed quiet until I finished. Then she said, "If your father's will was changed after his death, and you have reason to believe it wasn't authorized, you have a case. A strong one." My heart pounded. "You mean I can actually fight this?" "Not just fight," she said firmly. "Win. But you'll need evidence. Every document, every conversation, every lie, they all matter." That call changed everything. I felt something awaken inside me, a kind of strength I didn't know I still had. For years, I'd lived in fear of upsetting my mother, of being the ungrateful daughter. But now, I didn't care about their approval. I cared about justice. I started visiting my mom again, pretending to make peace. I brought small gifts, smiled through the fake warmth, and listened carefully. She thought I was finally coming around. She didn't know I had my phone recording every word. Every conversation, every slip she made about Dad's decisions. I kept it all. Evan was easier to trap. He bragged constantly, showing off about his investments that were really gambling schemes. I pretended to be interested, asking him how it worked, encouraging him to send me screenshots of his earnings. He was too proud to see what I was doing. At night, I'd sit at my new place, a small, quiet studio, and organize the evidence into folders. I labeled everything: financial fraud, will alteration, emotional manipulation. Each piece fit into place like a puzzle that told the truth of who they really were. Every day I felt stronger, calmer. The anger hadn't disappeared. It had transformed into control. For the first time in my life, I wasn't reacting to their chaos. I was creating my own plan. And this time I wouldn't break. They would. The day I filed the legal claim, I didn't shake or cry. My hands were steady as I signed the last document, my voice calm when I told Karen, "Let's do it." She smiled faintly, impressed. "You've come a long way, Clara." She had no idea how far. Walking out of her office, the cold air felt different that day, sharper, cleaner. For the first time, I wasn't running from the pain. I was walking toward it, ready to face it head on. That evening, I started the second part of my plan. I had all the proof I needed of Evan's scams: screenshots of his online gambling accounts, messages where he bragged about scamming investors, even emails he sent pretending to be a business consultant. I sent everything anonymously to his landlord, his boss, and a few of his so-called business partners. I didn't need to sign my name. The truth would do the talking. 2 days later, it all blew up. Evan's landlord stormed into his apartment with police and served him an eviction notice for unpaid debts. His boss fired him on the spot after learning he'd been using company clients for his fake investment side hustle. The story spread fast. Small towns love gossip, and soon everyone knew the Ridge family's golden boy wasn't so golden after all. I saw the fallout unfold from a distance. The neighbors who used to praise my mom started avoiding her. The same relatives who called me selfish now whispered behind her back. I didn't need revenge speeches or dramatic moments. Watching their carefully built image collapse under the weight of their own lies was enough. Then came the confrontation. It was a Saturday morning at the local grocery store. I was reaching for a carton of milk when I heard my name shouted from behind. "Clara." My mother's voice cut through the quiet hum of shoppers. I turned slowly to see her, her eyes red, her face tight with fury and fear. "What have you done?" she hissed, stepping closer. "Evan's life is ruined. People are talking, he's lost everything. You did this." I looked at her, calm and steady. "No, Mom. He did this. I just showed people who he really is." She glared at me, her lips trembling. "You think you're better than us? You've destroyed your family." I took a breath, met her eyes, and said softly, "You taught me how to protect family, remember? I'm just following your example." For a moment, she couldn't speak. The silence around us grew heavy. People were watching, neighbors, co-workers, strangers, but I didn't care. She looked smaller then, like the power she'd always held over me had finally slipped through her fingers. I left her standing there in the middle of the aisle, clutching her purse like a lifeline. For years, I'd been the one isolated, the one blamed and shamed. But now it was her turn. And this time, I wasn't the one walking away in tears. The house was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't comfort, but suffocates. I sat on the edge of the small couch in my new living room, boxes still unpacked, the faint smell of fresh paint lingering in the air. It wasn't much, just a modest one-bedroom on the edge of town, but it was mine. No shared walls of guilt, no footsteps of people who only knocked when they needed something. Just me. The news came in waves. Martha's world was unraveling faster than anyone could have predicted. The lawyer I'd spoken to had followed through. An official investigation was launched into the will. Turns out, the updated version that conveniently left everything to Evan had more inconsistencies than a forged check. When the investigators found her emails to the notary, everything fell apart. The gossip spread like wildfire, and soon, Martha was no longer the respected matriarch she once loved to pretend to be. Evan didn't fare better. After losing his job and apartment, he ended up begging distant relatives for a couch to sleep on. They took him in reluctantly, but I knew they'd make his stay miserable. The same people who once worshipped him now whispered behind his back, calling him the failed prodigal son. I didn't need to check on him to know he was spiraling. He always did when the attention faded. I thought their downfall would bring peace. It didn't. Some nights, I'd wake up at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling, heart racing for no reason. The revenge that once fueled me had burned out, leaving only ashes of exhaustion. I had justice, but not joy. Freedom, but not peace. It was during one of those sleepless mornings that Dylan showed up. I heard his car pull into the driveway, and when I opened the door, he was standing there with that familiar look, apologetic, wounded, rehearsed. "Clara," he started. I was wrong. "I didn't stand up for you when I should have." I stopped him with a quiet shake of my head. "You loved me when I was quiet, when I made things easy. You never loved me when I started standing up for myself." He looked away, jaw tightening. "That's not true." "Then why are you here now?" "Because I finally stopped needing your approval." He didn't answer. And that silence told me everything. I closed the door gently. No anger, no shouting, just an ending. Later that evening, I pulled out the last photo I had of us, me, Evan, and Mom, taken years ago on my college graduation day. I studied the smiles that now looked like masks. Then, without hesitation, I lit a match and watched the edges curl and darken. The photo crumbled into ash in the small metal bowl on my kitchen counter. For the first time in years, I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. But I breathed deeply, freely. And that was enough. The letter came on a gray morning, tucked between bills and a real estate brochure. My name was written in trembling handwriting I hadn't seen in months. I didn't need to open it to know who it was from. Still, I did. "Clara," it began, "I'm sick. They say it's serious. I don't have much time. Please come see me. I need my daughter." There was no apology. No acknowledgement of the years she spent tearing me apart to protect Evan. Just another demand wrapped in the language of love. For days, I left the letter on the counter, unopened again, as if it might fade away. But curiosity, or maybe a need for closure, pulled me toward the one place I swore I'd never go back to. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and nostalgia. Every step echoed down the hallway, heavy and hollow. I found her in a small private room, sunlight spilling weakly across the bed. She looked smaller somehow, almost fragile. The woman who once filled every space with her sharp voice now lay dwarfed by the machine beside her, tubes snaking from her arm. "Clara," she whispered when she saw me. Her lips trembled, her voice soft and cracked. "You came." I didn't answer. I just stood there, my bag still on my shoulder, staring at the woman who had spent my whole life teaching me to doubt my worth. "I didn't mean for things to get so bad," she said, reaching out with a trembling hand. "You know your brother, he wasn't strong. I had to look out for him. And destroy me in the process?" I asked quietly. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I'd seen them before. They were her oldest weapon. "I did what any mother would do," she murmured. "Family is all you have in this world, Clara. Blood is everything." I took a slow breath and sat down, not beside her, but across the room. "You're wrong," I said, my voice steady. "Family should protect you, not drain you. You taught me that blood doesn't make people loyal. It just makes the betrayal hurt more." Her lips parted, but no words came. The silence between us stretched long and cold. I could see the confusion flicker in her eyes. She didn't know how to manipulate this version of me. The old Clara would have cried, apologized for things that weren't her fault. But that girl was gone. "I came," I said finally, standing up. "Not because I forgive you, but because I wanted to end it face to face." She looked at me as if I'd just taken away her last breath of control. "Don't go," she whispered. "You'll regret it." I shook my head gently. I already did. For years. Then I turned and walked out of the room. No tears followed, no second thoughts. Outside, the winter air hit my face, sharp and clean. For the first time, I realized I wasn't running anymore. I was free. The courthouse was almost empty when the judge's voice broke through the silence. "The court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Miss Clara Ridge." For a moment, I didn't move. The words felt distant, unreal. My attorney, Karen, placed a gentle hand on my shoulder, smiling. "You did it, Clara. It's over. Over." The word echoed in my head as if testing its meaning. Years of manipulation, guilt, and heartbreak, all leading to this quiet victory. I walked out of the courthouse into the pale afternoon light, and for the first time in a long while, I breathed without fear of who might be watching. The inheritance wasn't much compared to the life I'd lost, but it was enough to start again. I didn't want luxury. I wanted meaning. Within months, I used part of it to rent a small building in the outskirts of town, a place where women like me could rest, heal, and rebuild. I called it the Haven. The first woman who came was younger than me, her face bruised and her hands trembling. She said her family had thrown her out for refusing to marry a man twice her age. I didn't ask for details. I just handed her a warm meal and told her she wasn't alone. That night, As I watched her sleep on a clean bed for the first time in weeks, something inside me eased. I realized revenge had never been the cure. It was purpose that mended the soul. Days turned into weeks. The shelter grew, slowly but surely. I spent my mornings helping others write resumes, my evenings cooking dinner with women who laughed again after months of silence. Sometimes I'd look around and think, if my mother had taught me love instead of control, maybe she could have been proud of this version of me. But then again, maybe I needed to lose her to find myself. One evening, I sat by the window of my small office, sipping tea, when my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Just 2 words, "I'm sorry." I stared at it for a long moment. The old me would have replied, desperate to reopen the wound in hopes of healing it. But this time, I simply pressed delete. No anger, no bitterness. Just peace. The rain tapped softly against the glass, and in its rhythm, I felt a quiet kind of closure. My story wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my power, my name, my life. As I locked up the shelter that night, I whispered into the still air. Losing my family was the best thing they ever gave me. The words didn't feel cruel. They felt true. And under the soft glow of the streetlights, I walked home. No longer Clara, the forgotten daughter, but Clara Ridge, the woman who built herself from the ashes and learned that freedom, not forgiveness, was the real victory. Do you think Clara made the right choice by walking away and starting a new life, or should she have tried to fix things with her family? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd really love to hear what you think. And if stories like this speak to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another one.